Back when I was 22, I was living in this small town out west, working a boring office job and spending my weekends hiking to blow off steam. It was late morning, sun high, a crisp fall day with leaves crunching under my boots. I parked my old pickup at the trailhead, grabbed my backpack with some water and a sandwich, and started hiking. The trail was narrow, winding through dense trees, and I hadn't seen another soul since I left the parking lot. About an hour in, I'm deep in the forest, maybe 3 miles from my truck, when I hear this sound that stops me cold, a kid crying. Not just sniffling, but full-on sobbing, like they're scared or hurt. My heart starts pounding, because, a kid out here? This trail's way too remote for that. No campsites, no picnic spots, just wilderness. I follow the sound, stepping off the trail a bit, and that's when I see her. A little girl, maybe 6 or 7, standing alone in a small clearing, wearing a dirty blue dress and one shoe. Her hair's all messy, and she's crying so hard her whole body's shaking. She's facing away from me, just standing there. No adults in sight. I freeze, not wanting to scare her, and call out, "Hey, sweetie, you okay? Where's your mom?" My voice is soft, but she jumps like I yelled, her head whipping around. Her face is pale, eyes red from crying, and she looks terrified, like I'm some monster. Before I can say anything else, she takes off, sprinting into the trees, her bare foot slapping the ground as she disappears into the brush. I'm standing there, my mouth open, trying to process what just happened. My first thought is she's lost or hurt, and I can't just leave her out here. I jogged to where she was standing, calling, "Hey kid, I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to help." But there's no answer, just the echo of my voice and the rustle of leaves. That's when I notice the ground around the clearing. It's all torn up, like someone's been walking in circles. And there, clear as day, are adult-sized footprints, big heavy ones with deep treads, like work boots. They're fresh, the dirt's still loose, and they're everywhere, looping around where the girl was standing. My stomach drops. These aren't my prints. My hiking boots have a different pattern. Whoever made these was here recently, and it didn't feel like they were just passing through. I look around, my heart racing, trying to spot the girl or anyone else. Hello? Is anyone there? I saw a kid out here. I shout, but the forest's dead quiet. I pull out my phone, 0 bars, of course, because I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm torn between chasing after her and getting the hell out to call for help. Those footprints are freaking me out, though. They look like someone was pacing, maybe watching her, and the thought of what that could mean makes my skin crawl. I take a few steps into the trees where she ran, shining my flashlight even though it's daylight, but the brush is thick, and I don't see her blue dress anywhere. I call out again, "Kid, come back. I just want to make sure you're safe." Nothing. Then I hear it, a snap, like a twig breaking, maybe 20 yards behind me. I spin around, my flashlight shaking in my hand, but I don't see anyone. Just trees and shadows. My heart's pounding so hard I can feel it in my ears. I stand still, listening, and there it is again, another snap, closer now, like someone's moving through the woods, trying to be quiet but not quite pulling it off. I'm no hero, man, but I'm not about to let some creep sneak up on me. I grip my flashlight like a club and shout, "Who's there?" "I see you." Total bluff, but I'm hoping it'll scare them off. No response, just another faint rustle like they're circling me. Now I'm really freaking out. I back out of the trees, keeping my eyes on the woods, and start hauling ass down the trail toward my truck. The whole time, I'm hearing these little noises, twigs snapping, leaves crunching, like someone's keeping pace just out of sight. I glance back every few seconds, expecting to see someone step out, but it's always just the empty trail. My mind's racing with every worst-case scenario. Was that girl bait for something? Were those footprints from someone who grabbed her? And who the hell's following me now? I'm not sticking around to find out. About a mile from the trailhead, I spot something that makes my blood run cold. A kid's backpack, bright yellow with cartoon dinosaurs, half hidden in the bushes off the trail. It looks like it could have been hers, but I'm too scared to stop and check. My legs are burning, my backpack bouncing like crazy, but I keep running, my breath coming out in gasps. The noises behind me don't stop. Every few steps, I hear another crunch, another rustle, like whoever it is knows I'm spooked and they're toying with me. I'm thinking about every news story I've ever read about people disappearing in the woods, and I'm kicking myself for hiking alone. Finally, I see the trailhead, my truck sitting there like a lifeline. I sprint the last stretch, my keys already in my hand, and practically dive into the driver's seat, slamming the door and locking it. I'm panting, sweating, staring out the windshield, half expecting someone to come charging out of the trees. Nothing happens. The parking lot's empty, just my truck and a couple of other cars, probably from other hikers. I start the engine and peel out, my tires kicking up dirt as I head for the main road. The whole drive, I keep checking my rearview mirror, thinking I'll see someone tailing me, but it's just empty highway. As soon as I get a signal, I pull over and call the park rangers. My voice all shaky as I spill everything. The crying girl, her running off, the adult footprints, the backpack, and the noises following me. They're super calm about it, saying they'll send someone to check the area and asking me to come by the ranger station to give a statement. I drive straight there, still jittery, and tell them every detail I can remember. They ask if I got a good look at the girl's face or if I saw anyone else, but I didn't, just her from behind and those damn footprints. They promised to search the clearing and the trail, but when I call back a few days later, they say they didn't find anything. No girl, no backpack, no footprints. They figure the prints could have been from another hiker, and the kid might have been with her parents, but I know what I saw. Those prints weren't random, and that girl was scared out of her mind. I haven't gone back to that forest since. I stick to busy trails now, ones with families and dog walkers, and I never hike alone anymore. I keep replaying that day, wondering who that girl was and what she was running from. Those footprints, the way she bolted, the noises tailing me. It all feels like I walked into something I wasn't supposed to see. Was she lost, or was someone after her? And who was following me? I checked the local news for weeks, looking for missing kid reports, but nothing matched. It's like she was a ghost. If any of you have ever had a run-in like this, how do you stop feeling like you should have done more? I'm still torn up, wondering if I could have helped her somehow. Back when I was 22, I was living in this tiny. It was a chilly fall night, probably around 11 p.m., and I was up late, sprawled on my couch with a bag of chips, scrolling through my phone. My apartment's on the second floor, with a big window facing the main street. Nothing fancy, just a view of the empty road, a couple of streetlights, and the closed-up diner across the way. I wasn't expecting to see anything, but I liked keeping the curtains open to let in the cool air. That's when I noticed some movement across the street, near the diner's parking lot. At first, I thought it was just a raccoon or something, but then I saw two people, shadowy under the dim streetlight. I sat up, squinting to get a better look. One of them was a guy, maybe in his 20s, wearing a dark hoodie and jeans, stumbling like he was drunk or hurt. The other was bigger, older, in a heavy jacket, moving fast like he was pissed. I couldn't see their faces, but something about the way they moved set off alarm bells. The bigger guy grabbed the smaller one by the arm, yanking him hard, and I heard a muffled shout, short, like the guy was trying not to be loud. My heart started racing, but I told myself it was probably just a fight, maybe some drunk buddies arguing. Then it got worse. The bigger guy pulled something from his pocket, and even from across the street, I could tell it was a knife, small, shiny, catching the light. Before I could process it, he lunged, and the smaller guy let out this awful, choked scream. I saw the knife go in, quick and brutal, and the guy in the hoodie crumpled to the ground, clutching his side. I froze, my chips spilling onto the couch, my phone slipping out of my hand. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, just stared as the bigger guy stood over him, breathing heavy, the knife still in his hand. The guy on the ground wasn't moving much, just twitching a little, and I thought, holy crap, he's dead. The bigger guy looked around, all frantic, like he was checking for witnesses. Then he grabbed the guy's arms and started dragging him toward a beat-up van parked at the edge of the lot. The van's door was already open, and he hauled the guy inside like he was a sack of groceries, slamming the door shut. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely grab my phone to call 911. But then, just as I unlocked the screen, the guy turned around and looked right at me. I swear my heart stopped. His face was half lit by the streetlight, and I could see his eyes, cold and sharp, staring straight into my window. I was on the second floor, but it felt like he was right in front of me. He didn't move, just stood there, locking eyes with me for what felt like forever, but was probably only a few seconds. I dropped to the floor, crawling behind a couch, my breath coming out in short, panicky gasps. I was terrified he'd seen me, that he knew I'd watched the whole thing. My apartment's lights were on, and with the curtains open, I might as well have been on a stage. I stayed there, curled up on the floor, listening for any sound, footsteps, a car engine, anything. I heard the van start up, its engine rattling, and then the tires squealed as it peeled out. I waited, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it, until I was sure it was gone. I crawled to the window, peeking over the sill, but the street was empty. No van, no body, just the diner's neon sign flickering like nothing had happened. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, my voice all shaky as I told the operator what I'd seen, a guy getting stabbed, dragged into a van, and the creep staring right at me. They told me to stay put and lock my doors, and a cop car would be there soon. I locked everything, door, windows, even wedged a chair under the knob like in the movies. I turned off all the lights and sat in the dark, clutching a kitchen knife, jumping at every creak in the old building. The cops showed up about 20 minutes later, 2 officers who looked more annoyed than worried. I told them everything, pointing to the spot across the street where it happened. They checked the parking lot but said there was no blood, no signs of a struggle, nothing. I insisted I'd seen it, described the van old dark blue or black rusty, and the guy's face, what little I could make out. They wrote it all down, said they'd look into it, but I could tell they thought I was exaggerating, maybe saw a fight and got spooked. After they left, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing that guy's eyes, the way he looked at me, like he was memorizing my face. My apartment felt too exposed, with its big windows and flimsy locks. I called my buddy Mike, who lived a town over, and told him what happened. He was like, "Dude, pack a bag and crash at my place." I didn't need convincing. I threw some clothes in a duffel and drove to his house at 2 a.m., checking my rearview mirror the whole way, paranoid that van was following me. The next day, I went back to my apartment with Mike to grab more stuff. I was too freaked to stay there alone. The cops called and said they hadn't found any reports of a missing person or a stabbing, but they'd keep an eye out for the van. I checked the local news for weeks, expecting to hear about a body turning up, but nothing. It was like it never happened. That made it worse, somehow like I'd imagined it, but I know what I saw. Those eyes, that knife, the way the guy went limp, it was real. This happened last year when I was on my way home from a late-night shift at the warehouse where I work. I'm just a regular dude, 25, not exactly built like a linebacker, and I was driving my old Honda Civic through this lonely stretch of highway that cuts through a forest about an hour outside town. It was around 2 a.m. when I saw something that made my heart skip a beat, a guy waving his arms in the middle of the road like his life depended on it. He was standing next to a beat-up old truck. Its hood popped open, hazard lights blinking weakly. The guy looked like he was in his late 20s, maybe early 30s, wearing a worn-out jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. I slowed down, my tires crunching on the gravel shoulder, as I pulled over about 15 feet behind him. I kept my engine running, doors locked, because something about this felt off. I've seen enough true crime shows to know you don't just hop out of your car in the middle of nowhere. I cracked my window, just enough to talk, and called out, "Yo, you good? What's going on?" He jogged over, his hands stuffed in his pockets, and leaned toward my window, closer than I liked. His face was pale, sweaty, and his eyes were all twitchy, darting around like he was expecting someone. "Man, my truck's dead," he said, his voice shaky but not quite right, like he was forcing it. "Can you give me a jump? Or maybe a lift to the next town?" He gestured at his truck, but I noticed he kept looking back toward the woods, not at his car. My gut was screaming that something was wrong. Maybe it was the way he stood too close, or how his hands stayed in his pocket, gripping something. I got jumper cables in my trunk, but I'd have to get out to grab them, and no way was I doing that. "Sorry, man, don't have cables," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was pounding. "There's a gas station about 15 miles up. You got a phone to call for help." He frowned, stepping closer, his shoulder almost touching my door. "Come on, dude, just take a quick look at my engine. I'm stranded out here." His tone was pushy now, and I caught a glimpse of something shiny in his pocket when he moved his hand. My stomach twisted. I was not liking this one bit. "Nah, I'm no mechanic," I said, my hand hovering over the gear shift. "I can call a tow truck when I get a signal, though." My phone was in the cup holder, showing 1 bar, barely enough for anything. He didn't like that answer. His face got tight, and he leaned in closer, his breath fogging up the crack in my window. "You sure you can't help me out?" he said, his voice low, almost like a growl. I shook my head, trying to stay calm. "Sorry, man, gotta get home. Long night. Good luck." I started rolling up the window, my fingers shaking a little, but before it closed, he slammed his fist against the glass, hard enough to make me jump. "Don't be a jerk," he shouted, his nice guy act gone. Then, out of nowhere, he pulled a knife from his pocket. A big one, like something you'd use to gut a deer. My heart stopped. He started smashing the knife handle against my window, screaming, "Get out. Get out here and help me." The glass cracked, then shattered, shards raining into my lap as I fumbled with the gear shift. I didn't think, just slammed my foot in the gas, my tires screeching as I swerved back onto the highway. I heard him yell something, his voice fading as I floored it, my hands shaking so bad I could barely steer. I was going 90, my heart pounding like a drum, glass crunching under my feet. I glanced in the rearview mirror, expecting to see his truck's headlights chasing me, but what I saw was worse. 2 more figures stepped out from the tree line, right where his truck was parked. They were just shadows at first, but my taillights caught them. One guy in a dark hoodie, the other in a flannel shirt, both staring at my car as I sped away. The knife guy was already running back toward them, waving the blade like he was pissed I got away. My blood ran cold. This wasn't some lone dude with a broken truck, it was a trap, and there were 3 of them. I didn't slow down until I hit a 24-hour diner about 10 miles later, my hand still trembling as I pulled into the lot. I stumbled inside, glass still stuck to my jacket, and asked the waitress to call the cops. My voice was all over the place as I told her what happened. The guy, the knife, the busted window, the 2 others coming out of the woods. She looked freaked out but got on the phone, and a patrol car showed up in like 15 minutes. The cops took my statement, checked out my shattered window, and said they'd send a car to scout the highway. They asked for every detail, the truck, the guy's face, the knife, but it was so dark I couldn't give them much. They said they'd look for the truck and the guys, but when I followed up the next day, they hadn't found anything. I got my window fixed, but I couldn't stop thinking about those 3 guys. I started taking a different route home, even if it's longer, and I keep my doors locked tight when I drive at night. I keep replaying it in my head. What do they want? My car? My wallet? Or something worse? The way those 2 came out of the woods, like they'd been waiting, makes me think I dodged something bad. I checked the news for weeks, looking for stories about highway robberies or worse, but nothing turned up. It's like they disappeared. If any of you have ever had a run-in like this, how do you shake the feeling that you're not safe anymore? I'm still checking my mirrors every time I drive, and I'd kill for some way to feel normal again. When I was about 16, my friend and I had a sleepover at a mutual friend's house. I grew up in a pretty rural area, not totally out in the boonies, but it's not like houses were crammed next to each other either. There was enough space to breathe, with fields and trees breaking up the neighborhood. About half a mile from our friend's place was this spot we called Como Water. It was this kind of gross, murky swimming hole, but we thought the name was hilarious, silly teenager stuff, you know? We didn't care how dank it was. We threw on our bikinis, grabbed our flip-flops, and headed out to swim. The 3 of us were walking through this field next to a quiet residential road behind our friend's house, chatting and laughing as we made our way to the Como. It was a nice day, nothing heavy on our minds. Then, out of nowhere, we noticed this black sedan creeping by. 2 older guys, probably in their 30s or 40s, nobody we'd ever seen before. We're inside, and they slowed down as they passed us. We all exchanged this quick look, like a creepy old dudes. It's that gross feeling every girl knows way too well, even when you're young. We rolled our eyes, but didn't think much of it and kept walking. We spent about an hour and a half splashing around in the Como, having a blast, laughing, and just being goofy teenagers. When we were done, we started heading back the same way we came, still joking around, wet hair and all. We passed this little cluster of houses along the road, maybe less than halfway back, when we noticed something weird. Up ahead, a car was reversing and turning onto a side road. We all froze when we realized it was the same black sedan from earlier, pulling out and heading straight for us. I don't know who snapped out of it first. Might have even been me, but one of us screamed, "Run!" There was an open field to our left, another to our right, but the car was coming from that side, so going back the way we came was our only shot. We took off, sprinting as fast as we could in our bikinis and flip-flops, which, let me tell you, is not ideal for running. My heart was pounding, and all I could think was that car could still be waiting for us if we try to keep going. We made it to the first house we saw, banging on the door like our lives depended on it. This sweet older couple, dressed up like they were headed to church, opened the door. We were breathless, practically tripping over our words as we begged for help. They were totally caught off guard. Imagine 3 teenage girls in swimsuits showing up at your door, freaking out, but they were kind enough to let us in. They grabbed some towels to throw over their car seats so we wouldn't get them wet and drove us back to our friend's house. I'm pretty sure I was running on pure adrenaline because I barely remember the ride. As an adult now, I bet there was plenty of sketchy stuff going on in that area, but back then, I was just trying not to lose it. When we got to the house, we made sure to lock every single door and window, double-checking everything like we were in a horror movie. About an hour later, the state trooper showed up to take our statement. We told him everything, the black sedan, the 2 creepy guys, how they slowed down and came back for us. He didn't say it outright, but he hinted that our description of the car and the men matched some recent abductions of girls our age in the area. He said we were lucky to be together and aware enough to get out of there unharmed. I tried looking for news articles later to back this up, but I couldn't find anything specific. There were just too many stories about abductions to sort through. Looking back, I think about how people say kids aren't as safe today as they used to be. But honestly, I don't buy that. There have always been terrible people out there, and there probably always will be. Evil's just part of the world, as much as I hate to say it. I might read too many true crime stories, but still, if you're a parent, keep an eye on your kids. That day, we were lucky, but it could have gone so differently. When I was 3 years old, my family was going through a tough time money-wise. My mom, my newborn brother, and I were living with my mom's parents. My mom's stepdad, who later adopted me and became the man I call my dad, was there too. It wasn't a bad situation, but it wasn't exactly calm either. My mom was young, trying to raise 2 kids while saving up for a place of our own, and it got to her sometimes. She'd get frazzled, juggling a toddler and a baby, so we spent a lot of time doing free stuff, parks, lakes, anywhere we could go without spending a dime. One weekend, my grandma, who was still in pretty good health back then, drove my mom, my baby brother, and me to a small lake in Denver for a little getaway. I don't know why I remember this so vividly at 3 years old, but I do. I was all decked out in my pink bathing suit, chatting away to my favorite teddy bear, Mr. Bear, who still sits on my bed to this day. My brother started fussing in the car, as babies do, and I plugged my ears to block out his crying. By the time we got to the lake, my mom and grandma were wiped out from dealing with him. They got me out of my car seat and told me to wait by the car while they went around to the other side to feed and calm my brother down. I listened, standing there by the car, clutching Mr. Bear and staring at the waves on the lake. I've always loved swimming, so I was just soaking it all in, excited to jump in. That's when 2 guys came up to me from across the parking lot. I don't know why this memory is so clear, but I can still picture them. Both in their early 20s, I think, wearing baggy jeans and hoodies. They were Caucasian, if that matters. Something about them gave me an instant bad vibe, like that stranger danger feeling they drill into you as a kid. I pressed myself against my grandma's car, thinking it'd somehow protect me. My little heart was racing, and I was already a cautious kid, so this wasn't my first weird encounter with a stranger, but it hit me hard. "Hey, little girl," one of them said, bending down so his face was right in mine. "Do you want $1?" I froze, not saying a word. My limbs felt like they were locked in place. The other guy pulled out a crumpled dollar bill, and the first one kept talking. "It's okay. If you get into our car, we'll give you $1. He grabbed my arm, and I started crying. but I was so scared I couldn't make a sound, just silent tears streaming down my face. "Don't cry, little girl, we'll give you $1, he said again, pulling me toward this dirty white van parked nearby. The other guy chimed in, telling me they'd make me rich, that I'd have more money than any other little girl, and could buy any toy I wanted if I just got in the van. We were halfway to the van when I dropped Mr. Bear. That's when I finally let out a real scream, loud and desperate. The guys didn't seem too worried at first, but then my grandma came charging around the car like a force of nature. She was tiny 70 years old, but you'd never know it from the way she went after them. She was still holding the baby bottle she'd been using to feed my brother, and she started swinging it at them, hitting them hard while yelling some choice words I'd never heard her use before or since. The men let go of me, their faces sour with defeat, and bolted to their van. They peeled out of the parking lot, tires screeching. My grandma scooped up Mr. Bear, handed him back to me, and carried me to my mom. They both hugged me tight, trying to calm me down. I was shaking, still crying, and they called the police right away. The cops came, took our statements, and wondered out loud how a tiny 70-year-old woman managed to scare off two young guys. My grandma even had blood under her nails from scratching at them. She was fierce. My mom and grandma decided we should just head home and try the lake another day. I don't know if those guys were ever caught, but I sure hope they were. Whatever they wanted with a 3-year-old blonde girl wasn't good, that's for sure. My grandma doesn't remember this story now. She's got dementia. But to me, she's forever a hero. I love reminding my mom that she's the bravest, kindest woman we know. This happened 20 years ago, but it stuck with me. Parents, keep a close eye on your kids. There are some sick people out there, and that's never going to change. This wasn't the first time I had a close call with something like this, but it was definitely the most terrifying, and it was the closest I ever came to something really bad happening. This happened about a decade ago, when I was 16 and going through my quintessential angsty, moody teenager phase. I was mad at the world, always brooding, and honestly kind of pained to be around. But looking back, I think that fiery attitude might have been what saved me. I've never fully opened up about this to anyone, so it's still a bit raw to think about. We lived in one of the nicer parts of the city, a neighborhood that felt safe for the most part. There had been some muggings around, but from what I knew, none had turned deadly. I wasn't exactly glued to the local news or anything. Typical teenager, too wrapped up in my own drama to care. My mom, though, had been getting more and more worried over the past few months. She kept nagging me about locking the doors, not wandering off alone, not talking to strangers, the usual parent spiel. I'd roll my eyes thinking she was overreacting. I mean, I was 16, not a kid anymore, right? The big fight came when she told me I wasn't allowed to walk home from the extracurricular classes I was taking downtown. I'd been taking the train to the end of the line, where our neighborhood was, and then walking the 10-minute stretch to our apartment building. I'd done that walk forever, since I was little. I could probably do it blindfolded. Most of the time, I had my headphones on, blasting loud, grungy music on my old, beloved CD player, totally in my own world, safe in my bubble of angsty tunes. But my mom wasn't having it. We went at it, yelling, screaming, the whole "you're suffocating me, you don't trust me, you're the worst mom ever" drama. You know how it goes. Eventually, we compromised. I could walk home as long as it was still light out. If it was dark, I had to call her to pick me up. I was fine with that for the most part. But that night, I was pissed. I don't even remember why anymore. Just that I was in a rage, ready to scream my head off. The idea of calling my mom to come get me felt like admitting defeat, like I was some helpless kid. No way was I doing that. It was raining hard, but I didn't care. I wasn't made of sugar, and I wasn't about to let a little rain stop me. I got off the train, popped my headphones in, and started marching home, music cranked up, hood up, ready to take on the world. On the outside, I probably looked like any other 16-year-old hurrying through the rain. On the inside, I was plotting revenge against some vague enemy, ready to crush anyone who crossed me. The route from the station to my house was usually well lit, except for this one sketchy turn. There was a stretch of about 100 feet with no streetlights, just these overgrown, unkempt hedges on both sides, one in front of an abandoned lot. I was so caught up in my head, planning my imaginary takedown of whoever had ticked me off, that I didn't even notice my surroundings. That's when it happened. Someone jumped out from the bushes, right beside me, holding a big kitchen knife. Everything after that is kind of a blur. I don't remember what he looked like. It was dark, and he had a hood up. All I can recall is the strong smell of rubbing alcohol, like he'd been doused in it. I don't think he even got a chance to say anything, because the second he jumped out, I dropped my CD player, and that was it. I lost it. All the anger I'd been bottling up that day came pouring out like a dam breaking. I started yelling, screaming at him, "Are you freaking kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me right now?" Over and over, shoving him back as hard as I could. I didn't even think about the knife. I was too mad. I bent down to pick up my shattered CD player, cursing the whole time. I don't know why he didn't swing at me when I was crouched down, vulnerable. Maybe he was just as shocked as I was by my reaction. But when I stood up, pieces of my broken Discman in hand, he was gone, vanished into the dark. I kept walking home, muttering to myself, "Great, just great. What else is going to go wrong today to make this an even crappier day?" Every few steps, I'd turn around and yell another "screw you" into the darkness, half expecting him to pop out again. When I got home, my mom was furious that I hadn't called her. I didn't breathe a word about what happened, partly because I didn't want to give her any reason to think she was right about the whole "it's not safe" thing. I was still too stubborn for that. It wasn't until I was in the shower later, when the adrenaline finally wore off, that the weight of it hit me. I'd been that close to something awful. I cried, not just for the danger I'd been in, but for my broken CD player, which had been my lifeline through so many bad days. 2 days later, I overheard my mom on the phone, talking about how a neighbor, a girl I vaguely knew from Sunday school, had been found stabbed in the lot behind those same hedges where I'd been attacked. My stomach dropped. They were saying it was part of a string of muggings and stabbings in the nicer parts of the city, maybe even a serial killer. That's when I realized how lucky I'd been. My anger, my stupid teenage rage, had probably saved my life, but the guilt and fear stuck with me. I'd walked away unscathed, but someone else hadn't. I grew up in this big, creepy house that was straight out of a horror movie cliché. It was over 100 years old, perched on a hill, shrouded by these gnarly oak trees where crows would always hang out, cawing like they owned the place. The house had this heavy, dark vibe that just clung to you. My older sister, 7 years older than me, was a total problem child, super into occult stuff, demons, devil worship, the works. She'd scare the living daylights out of my younger brother and me with her creepy stories and that blank, eerie stare she'd give us. She wore black lipstick, dyed her hair jet black, and by the time she was 13, she was running away from home for weeks, sometimes months. She's the one who first introduced us to a Ouija board, which probably wasn't the best idea. Our mom was an alcoholic, struggling with her own mental health issues, and she was in charge of us kids while my dad worked night shifts, often pulling doubles. To say our house had bad energy is putting it mildly. Later, we learned from Mrs. Looker, this 90-year-old lady across the street, that our house used to be a home for unwed mothers. For about 20 years, it was a place of births, deaths, and abortions, stuff that was seriously frowned upon back then. It got shut down, sat empty for a while, and then a family lived there until my dad bought it in 1970 for a steal. He still lives there now. The first weird thing I remember is hazy, but my mom's told me the story so many times, and even my dad, who doesn't believe in ghosts, backs it up. I was little, maybe 4 or 5. My mom was outside sunbathing, and my sister was inside with a friend. I wandered into the kitchen, grabbed a butter knife, and held it in my fist, point down, like I was in a trance or something. I walked into the living room where my sister was, my face blank, shaking, and kept repeating, "Mommy needs help. She's fighting the devil across the street in a tunnel." My sister freaked out, yelled for my mom, and she came rushing in, asking what was wrong. I just kept saying the same thing over and over. "Mommy needs help. She's fighting the devil across the street in a tunnel." My mom shook me, telling me she was right there, trying to snap me out of it. She said I stayed like that, staring into space, for about an hour before I finally came back to normal. I didn't remember a thing. Later that night, during bath time, my mom noticed 3 bad burn marks on my shoulder. She swore they looked like claw marks from a demon or something. My mom's always been spiritual. She was abandoned as a kid, adopted, and claimed she was saved by a guardian angel once when she was young, feeling danger closing in and somehow ending up back on her porch hundreds of yards away. So she was convinced I'd been possessed or something. Then there's my younger brother's story. He's a year and a half younger than me. We shared a bedroom with bunk beds until I was 11. I had the top bunk, he had the bottom. Our room was always a mess, toys everywhere. One morning, around 4 a.m., my brother woke up and saw what he thought was our mom crouched down, cleaning up our toys. He could only see her back and her hair, gray mixed with dyed blonde, and she was wearing her long, flowy white nightgown, which was unmistakable. He didn't think much of it and went back to sleep. When we woke up, our room was spotless, which never happened. I asked him how it got so clean, and he said he saw Mom cleaning in the middle of the night. At breakfast, we asked her why she'd done it, and she looked at us like we were crazy. She swore she'd never been in our room, went to check it out, and was shocked at how tidy it was. That was just the start. Around that time, my brother started having night terrors that scare me to death. I'd wake up to him screaming, standing in the corner of our room, facing the wall, banging his head against it, saying things like, "I'm sorry, God," over and over. Other times, he'd be sitting in the middle of the room, knees pulled to his chest, rocking back and forth, crying and mumbling stuff that made no sense. My dad would come down the long, dark hallway to our room and try to snap him out of it, sometimes even slapping him to get a reaction, but nothing worked. Eventually, Dad said to just leave him be, because he'd always climb back into bed after an hour or so and fall asleep like nothing happened. One night was especially bad. I woke up to find him sitting cross-legged on the dresser, back to the mirror, covering his eyes and crying, saying, "No, I won't. You can't make me look." I tried talking to him, and he'd give short, simple answers. I grabbed his hand, saying we should get some water. He followed me to the bathroom, but refused to go in because of the mirror above the sink. I pushed him inside, and when he saw his reflection, he let out the most blood-curdling scream I've ever heard, then passed out cold. Those episodes happened every couple of months, always in the early morning hours, and went on for years. It was like living in a nightmare. The house itself didn't help. The electrical and plumbing were ancient, never updated. Most of the lights didn't work, including the one in the long, dark hallway connecting our room, my sister's room, and the only bathroom. When my brother had his fits, I'd reach out to flip the hall light on, but it rarely worked. If I wanted to check on him, I'd have to run through the pitch-black hallway, feeling the walls to find my way. It was terrifying. The plumbing was just as bad. When you turn on the faucet, rusty red water would come out for a few seconds before clearing up, and it made this loud whistling sound that got worse the stronger the water flow was. I'd wake up some nights to the faucet in the bathroom running full blast, that whistle echoing down the hall. I'd have to sprint through the dark, flip on the bathroom light, and shut it off, praying nothing was waiting for me when the light came on. Then I'd run back to my room, heart pounding. The worst part, an hour after I'd shut it off, I'd sometimes wake up to the faucet running again. This went on for years. My dad always said it was my brother messing with me, but he denied it, and it'd be a heck of a prank to keep up for so long without getting caught. When I was 11, I moved to a bigger bedroom down that same dark hallway, and it got even scarier. Hearing my brother's fits from down the hall alone in my room was worse than being in the same room with him. I just stay put, light on, too freaked out to move. Another piece of the puzzle came years later when I was dating this beautiful Venezuelan woman with long black hair. We were together for about a year before she told me about her childhood. Apparently, she was a powerful medium back in Venezuela, so much so that she gained local notoriety. She said some days, up to 30 ghosts would try to communicate through her. It got so overwhelming that her mom took her to a witch doctor in Zimbabwe, someone known for suppressing medium powers. Her mom cried telling me the story, and my girlfriend showed me tiny scars on her ankles, knees, and wrists from where the witch doctor had cut her to drain blood for the ritual. I didn't believe it at first, but it came up one morning when we were staying in a tent in a friend's backyard during a party. We were pillow talking, and she casually asked if I'd heard the little girl outside our tent the night before. I played along thinking she was joking and said, "Yes, super creepy, right? She said the girl circled the tent a few times before running off into the cornfield nearby. I didn't think much of it until later that night when I mentioned it to my friend Mark, who owned the house. His face went pale and he asked, "Wait, how do you know about the little girl?" Apparently, there was a local legend about a girl who went missing in those cornfields decades ago and sometimes appeared at night. When I asked my girlfriend if she was serious, she came clean about her medium backstory, saying her powers were weaker after Zimbabwe, but still kicked in sometimes. I brought her to my dad's house once to meet him, and she couldn't stay inside for more than a few minutes. She said the dread she felt in there was the worst she'd ever experienced and swore she'd never go back. Now, on to the Ouija board night. I was 22, and my brother was 20. My mom had moved to a house in a small city's downtown, and my brother spent a lot of time there because she was chill about him drinking and smoking weed. I showed up one night after drinking with friends, and the door was locked. I knocked, and my brother flung it open, looking like he'd seen a ghost, pale, eyes wide, legit terrified. He dragged me inside, saying, "You're not going to believe what's happening." He and his girlfriend had been playing the Ouija board all night, and they connected with a super intense evil spirit who called himself AZ. He said AZ stood for everything, like he was omnipresent or something. According to my brother, AZ had been spelling out "kill mom" and saying awful, vulgar things about her all night while she slept in the next room. He said AZ had knocked a crucifix off the wall and opened and closed the bathroom door just minutes before I got there. The hair on my neck stood up. I believed my brother. His fear was too real, but I hadn't seen anything myself yet. I sat down to watch them play. The planchette was flying around the board, answering questions fast. AZ zeroed in on me, spelling out "brother." My brother asked if AZ wanted to talk to me, and it said no. He asked if AZ liked me, and it said no. I told my brother to tell AZ I didn't believe in him and needed a sign. AZ spelled out "die." When my brother asked if AZ was going to hurt me, it said no, then spelled out "mom." I got up, heart racing, and went to check on my mom. She was fine, sleeping soundly. While I was in her room, I stubbed my toe and tripped a little. I came back to the living room and told my brother Mom was okay. He commanded AZ to leave her alone and asked for a sign. AZ spelled out "trip." A chill ran through me. Was he talking about me tripping? My brother asked what AZ meant by trip, and I admitted I just stubbed my toe in Mom's room. I told him to ask if AZ could hear me. I started talking directly to the board, and AZ said he could. I pushed further, asking if I wrote a word on a piece of paper, could he see it and spell it? AZ said, "Maybe." When I asked if he'd do it, he said, "Not." I got bold, calling AZ a coward and a jerk, saying if he was real, he'd prove it. The planchette went wild, spinning around before landing on short. I asked if he wanted me to write short words, and AZ said yes. I went to the other side of the apartment, grabbed a piece of paper, and wrote C. I folded it, stuffed it in my pocket, and came back. My brother asked AZ if he saw what I wrote and to spell it. The planchette moved slowly, landing on S, then E, and my heart was pounding. I thought I was going to cry from the intensity, but then it slid to X. My brother asked if I wrote sex, and I said no, shaking. He cursed at AZ, calling him a creep and telling him to stop messing around. The planchette moved again, this time spelling out C clear as day. I gasped out loud, and the planchette shot off the board with so much force it freaked us out. Right then, my mom's cat came bolting out of her room, tore across the couch, and hid under the table, clearly spooked. I still get goosebumps thinking about it. We got AZ back on the board, and I kept testing him. I wrote ocean, then cream, and a few more words, each time going to a different room, making sure no one could see what I wrote, folding the paper and pocketing it. AZ spelled every single word perfectly, faster each time. It was unreal. I left the house, told my brother to stay safe, and crashed at a friend's place up the road. No way was I going back to my dad's house that night. The feeling of knowing without a doubt that something was real. It's overwhelming, like every emotion hits you at once. Make no mistake, folks, spirits are out there, and that night proved it. This happened one time when I was heading to the supermarket in my hometown, a quiet little place where everybody knows everybody and you don't expect trouble. I'm just a regular guy, 27, working construction and living in a small apartment near the edge of town. It was a Thursday night around 8 p.m. and I was beat from a long day on the job site, just wanting to grab some groceries and crash on my couch with a beer. Man, I had no idea that quick trip would turn into something that still makes my hands shake when I think about it. The supermarket's in the middle of town, next to a strip mall with a couple of fast food joints and a laundromat. It's usually pretty chill, with moms pushing carts and old guys buying lottery tickets. I parked my truck, grabbed my reusable bags, trying to be eco-friendly, and headed toward the entrance. That's when I saw this guy standing near the sliding doors, leaning against a pillar. He was scruffy, maybe in his 40s, with stained hoodie, torn jeans, and a backpack that looked like it had seen better days. He was holding a cardboard sign that said something like, "Need help, God bless." I'd seen homeless folks around before, and I usually toss a buck or two if I've got cash, but that night I was tapped out, just my card and a couple quarters. He caught my eye as I got closer and stepped right in front of me, blocking the entrance. "Hey man, got any spare change?" "I'm starving," he said, his voice rough but not loud. His eyes were intense, though, like he was sizing me up. I felt bad, but I didn't have anything on me. "Sorry, dude, I don't carry cash," I said, trying to sound polite as I stepped to the side. He moved with me, blocking me again, and his face changed, like a switch flipped. "Come on, you got something," he said, leaning in closer, his breath smelling like cigarettes and something sour. I took a step back, my heart starting to pick up. "Nah, really, I'm just here to grab some food." "Wish I could help," I said, raising my hands a little, trying to keep things cool. That's when it went south. His eyes narrowed, and he reached into his backpack, pulling out a knife, a nasty-looking switchblade that caught the glow of the parking lot lights. My stomach dropped. "You just picked the wrong guy to ignore," he said, his voice low and mean, stepping closer so the knife was maybe a foot from my chest. I froze, my brain screaming. What the hell is happening? The parking lot was quiet. No one else around, just me and this guy. The supermarket doors hissing open and closed behind him. My truck was too far to make a run for it, and I didn't want to turn my back on that knife. I raised my hands higher, trying to talk him down. "Whoa, man, I'm not ignoring you. I just don't have cash, I swear." My voice was shaky, and I hated how scared I sounded. He didn't budge, just stared at me, the knife steady in his hand. "You think you're better than me?" he spat, taking another step. That's when I knew I had to move. I bolted to the side, toward the supermarket doors, my sneakers slipping on the pavement as I ran. He lunged, swinging the knife, but I was already through the doors, the glass sliding shut behind me with a whoosh. I stumbled into the store, my heart pounding like a jackhammer, and yelled, "Help! There's a guy with a knife out there." A couple of shoppers turned, looking confused, but the security guard near the registers, a big dude named Tony who I'd seen around, sprang into action. He grabbed his radio and ran toward the doors, shouting for me to stay back. I was shaking, trying to catch my breath, hiding behind a display of canned soup like some scared kid. Through the glass, I saw Tony confront the guy who was still standing there, knife in hand, looking pissed. Tony was yelling something, his hand on his baton, and I could see the guy yelling back, waving the knife around. Then, just as Tony got closer, the guy pointed right at me through the glass, his eyes locking onto mine. He grinned, this creepy, toothy smile that made my skin crawl, and mouthed, "I'll remember your face." My blood ran cold. Tony grabbed his arm, twisting it until the knife clattered to the ground, and wrestled him to the pavement. Another employee called the cops, and within minutes, sirens were blaring, and 2 patrol cars pulled up. They cuffed the guy who was still yelling nonsense about how I'd pay for it, and hauled him into the back of a cruiser. I gave my statement to the cops, my hands still trembling as I described the knife, what he said, that chilling grin. They said he was a known transient, probably off his meds, with a history of causing trouble, but nothing this violent before. They found the knife, a 6-inch switchblade with a worn handle, and said I was lucky to get inside when I did. Tony clapped me on the shoulder, said I did the right thing running, but I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a coward, hiding behind soup cans while that guy's words echoed in my head. "I'll remember your face." I grabbed my groceries, but I barely remember checking out. My mind stuck on that grin. When I got to my truck, I locked the doors and sat there for a minute, checking the mirrors, half expecting him to be standing in the shadows. The cops said they'd hold him for a bit, but guys like that don't always stay locked up. I started avoiding that supermarket at night, sticking to daytime runs or driving to a bigger store out of town. For weeks, I kept seeing his face in my head, wondering if he'd show up again, if he really meant it when he said he'd remember me. I checked the news for any reports of him getting out or causing more trouble, but nothing came up. Still, every time I'm out late, I'm looking over my shoulder, waiting for that grin to appear. If any of you have ever had a run-in like this, how do you stop feeling like you're being watched? That night messed me up, and I'd kill for some way to shake the fear that he's out there, waiting to make good on his promise. So, this all went down a couple years ago when I was like 21. I was working at this little indie bookstore that also had a coffee shop in the front. It was actually pretty cool usually. Quiet, lots of books, good vibes. I mostly worked the closing shift, which meant I was there till like 11, sometimes midnight on weekends. It was usually just me and one other person, maybe a manager if it was a busy night, but mostly just us. And the last hour or so, it was dead. Like crickets. Perfect for studying, or just chilling. Anyway, there was this guy. He started coming in, I guess maybe a month or two after I started working the closing shift. He wasn't, super memorable at first. Just a dude. Mid-30s, maybe early 40s. Kinda thin, always wore this faded blue jacket, even when it wasn't cold. And he always ordered the same thing. A black coffee, no sugar, no cream, and one of those plain croissants. Every single night. Like clockwork, around 9:30 p.m. At first, I didn't think anything of it. Regulars are cool, right? Makes the job easier. But then I started noticing things. He'd sit at the same table by the window, facing the counter. And he wouldn't read or work on a laptop or even really look at his phone. He'd just sit and stare. Not like at me directly, but just generally in my direction. Like he was watching the whole store, but it felt like he was watching me. My gut started doing this weird little twitch every time he came in. You know that feeling? Like something's just off, but you can't put your finger on it. One night, he came up to the counter to refill his coffee, and he actually spoke. "Busy night, huh?" he said. His voice was kinda low, raspy. I just nodded, not really, winding down. And he just stood there, holding his mug, staring at me. Not smiling, not frowning. Just staring. It lasted too long. Like an awkward amount of time. I finally just took his mug and refilled it, trying to act normal. He took it back, said thanks, and went back to his table. Didn't break eye contact the whole time. My hands were shaking a little when I wiped down the counter. Then it started getting weirder. He'd start asking questions. Casual at first. "You work here every night? What time do you usually close?" I'd give vague answers like, "Oh, just whenever I'm scheduled," or around 11. But he kept pushing. One night he asked, "Do you live around here?" And that's when my spidey senses really went off. I just said, "I don't really talk about that with customers, sorry." He just nodded, that same blank stare, and went back to his table. But I could feel his eyes on me for the rest of the night. It was like a physical weight. I started getting really uncomfortable. I told my manager, Mark, about it. He was a good guy, but kinda laid back. He was like, "Oh, he's just a regular, probably harmless. Just ignore him." Easy for him to say. He wasn't the one stuck behind the counter with this guy, staring holes through him every night. I even told my coworker, Jess, who worked the earlier shift sometimes. She just laughed like, "Oh, you got a secret admirer." No, Jess, this ain't no secret admirer. This is creepy. It got to the point where I dread his arrival. I'd see him walking up to the door, and my stomach would just clench. I started trying to avoid him. I'd go to the back to stock shelves or clean the bathroom when I saw him coming. But he'd always be there when I came back out. Just sitting, staring. Then came the night that really messed me up. It was a Tuesday, super slow. He came in, got as usual. I was trying to look busy, wiping down the espresso machine, humming to myself. He finished his coffee, got up, and came to the counter. My heart started pounding, like thump, thump, thump. He put his empty mug on the counter. He said, his voice even lower than usual, "I saw you walking home last night." My blood ran cold. Like, literally. I felt it drain from my face. I live like a good 20-minute walk from the bookstore. And it's not exactly on a main road. I usually cut through a couple of quieter streets to get to my apartment building. Nobody should have seen me. Especially not him. I tried to play it cool, though my voice was probably a little shaky. "Oh, really? I usually drive," which was a lie. I walked most nights to save gas money. He just gave this tiny, almost imperceptible smirk. "No, you were walking." Blue hoodie. Headphones. My stomach dropped. I had been wearing my blue hoodie. And headphones. How the hell did he know that? I felt like I was going to throw up. I just stared at him, my mind racing. Should I yell? Should I call the police? But what would I even say? This guy saw me walking home? It sounds so stupid. He just stood there for another second, that same blank look, then turned and walked out. Didn't say goodbye, didn't even look back. I just stood there, frozen, until I heard the bell above the door jingle as he left. I locked the door the second he was gone, even though we still had like an hour till closing. I called Mark, practically in tears. He knows where I live, Mark. He followed me. Mark tried to calm me down, said he'd call the police, but honestly, what could they do? "Ma'am, a man saw you walking home. That's not a crime." I knew it, but it felt like a damn threat. I was shaking so bad I couldn't even close up the store properly. Mark had to come in and do it. He drove me home that night, and I swear I kept looking in the rearview mirror the whole time. Every car that looked even remotely like his, I freaked out. For the next few days, I was a wreck. I called in sick for a couple of shifts. I was too scared to leave my apartment. My roommate, Sarah, was awesome. She brought me food, listened to me ramble, and tried to convince me to go to the police again. But I just felt helpless. Then, about a week later, I had to go back to work. I couldn't afford to lose the job. Mark said he'd make sure someone was always with me for the closing shift, which helped a little. But I was still terrified. Every jingle of the door, every shadow, made me jump. He didn't come in for a few nights. I started to think, maybe he got the message. Maybe he moved on. I started to relax, just a tiny bit. Then, one night, it was just me and Mark closing. It was almost 11, and we were counting the till. The streetlights outside were kinda dim, and the store was mostly dark except for the counter area. I was just about to lock the front door for the night when I glanced out the window. And there he was, standing across the street, in the shadows, just looking at the bookstore. He wasn't moving, just standing there, facing us. He had that damn faded blue jacket on. My heart literally stopped. Then it started hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. I grabbed Mark's arm hard. "Mark, look." Mark looked up, saw him. His eyes got wide. "Holy crap," he whispered. The guy just stood there for another minute, maybe two. It felt like an eternity. He didn't wave, didn't try to come closer. Just stood there, staring. Then slowly, he turned and just walked away, disappearing into the darkness. Mark called the police again, right then and there. They sent a patrol car, but by the time they got there, he was long gone. They took our statement, said they'd keep an eye out, but it felt like they didn't really believe us. Like, oh, a guy stood on a public street. What's the big deal? But it was a big deal. It was terrifying. It was a violation. I quit that job a week later. I just couldn't do it anymore. Every shift was pure anxiety. I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing him in my nightmares, just standing there watching. I moved apartments a month after that. Found a place in a different part of town with a secure building and a doorman. I changed my routine, started taking different routes everywhere. I even changed my phone number. I still get this weird feeling sometimes when I'm walking alone at night or if I see a guy in a faded blue jacket. My gut still does that twitch. I don't know who he was or what he wanted, and I don't want to know. All I know is he made me feel like prey, and that's a feeling I never ever want to experience again. It's like you think you're safe, and then someone just takes that away from you, and you're never really the same after that.